You're at the Coaching Inn, 3D Coaching's virtual pub, where we enjoy conversations with people who are engaged in the world of coaching.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Coaching Inn. I'm your host, Claire Pedrick, and today it's my pleasure to be in conversation with Caroline Quaife. So Caroline came to the Coaching Inn ages ago to talk about simple somatics, the somatic sandbox, and we've had a bit of a check-in, and we had a lovely walk at Croom in Worcestershire in England, and said, let's come back. I think actually she said, I've got a new thing, can I come and talk about it? So I'll get Caroline to introduce herself in a moment, but first of all, if you don't subscribe or follow the podcast on this platform where you listen to it, it'd be great if you did, because that works for you and it works for us, and you'll get every new episode as it drops. And if you love this episode, do share it with somebody else. Thank you. Caroline, hello.
Hi Claire. Oh, it's so lovely to see you again and to be here.
Yeah, not in real life.
I know. Yeah, that was a beautiful day walking in Croom. Gorgeous sunshine. Yes.
Because that's the muddy bit.
Oh, I enjoyed that. I just actually had taken my boots off and just really indulged in it. Yeah.
It was really muddy, listeners, like kind of over your feet muddy. Anyway, that was a distraction. So Caroline, what are you up to now?
Yeah, so I have, for the last few years, I have been working as a somatic coach and running introductory somatic coaching program. And longer than that, I have been trying to shift my relationship with money. And I realized that I couldn't find any somatic programs around money and shifting your relationship. They're all money mindset, which is around changing your beliefs. And somatic is the body in all of its intelligences and all of its aliveness. And I was like, I need to bring this in. So I started using some of the things I use with my clients and myself in relation to my relationship with money. And then I thought, I want to share it. So that's one of my new offers. And also, I am going to be offering a longer program, certificate in somatic coaching as well next year as well. So quite exciting in terms of new offers and where my business is going.
That's fantastic. And we recommend lots of people to do your somatic course, as you know.
Thank you. I know. Thank you so much.
Because it feels like Caroline's course is at the safe end of somatics. So somatic is about felt sense, and it's about the body. And there are some really amazing courses out there, and some of them might scare you witless. And there's something in learning, isn't there, about being uncomfortable enough, but not scared witless. And Caroline is your woman.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I guess what I've realized is that what I enjoy is making things accessible to people. And somatic coaching made a big difference to me in terms of my life. I was very stuck when I came across it. And I'm unstuck now, and there's a lot more joy in my life, and I bring it to every aspect. And so it's all about, following that passion, I guess. And I do feel that coaching is a force for good. I love the coaching community, and I'm so lucky that I've met people like Claire through the coaching community. And so it is really about trying to do my bit to enable coaches to go out in the world and, work with other human beings.
Yeah, and you've changed so much.
Really?
Yeah, you are like a totally different person.
Oh, that's nice. I hope it's nice.
And listeners, I'll put the link in to the to the other podcast, and I think you'll see here.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
The scientific experiment on change.
Yes, now I feel like I'm a little mouse that's been creating faults on its tail. That's what I think of with scientific experiments. It's a bit old-fashioned.
Yeah, but we're not going to do it. If a listener would like to do it, you can listen to it.
Yeah, lovely.
So tell me about the money thing, because it's interesting, because you said there's a difference between money mindset and your relationship with money. So say a bit more about that.
Yeah, so what I'm realizing is that your relationship with money is has so much depth, you know, everything, it has much deeper roots than we think. And so money mindset tries to change our beliefs, which is kind of our cognitive thoughts, etc. Somatic work has this sense that we store all of our experience and all of our inheritance as well in our bodies. And so what we're doing is, the way to any sort of shift, we try and work at it from our brains first of all and leave out our bodies. We manage to do a certain amount, but actually it's generally not so long lasting. And as soon as you get some kind of challenge, you revert back to those old sort of we call them conditioned tendencies. So those old things that you learnt as a young person to keep yourself safe. And you know, our relationship with money, it's also it can be very tangled up, you know, in terms of our relationships with what we learned as a child from our parents, and what they learned as a children from their grandparents as well. So it's like we're swimming in a money system, and you know, we're not aware of that system that we're swimming in. We just accept it as it is. And so quite often our relationship with money, we accept it as it is. It's quite unconscious. And so this is about bringing it to consciousness, but in a compassionate way, because working somatically is all about compassion. There's a phrase that David Trevelyan says, which is, the body opens with a yes. And so it's that sense of being really kind to what's got you to where you are now, your patterns, your hang-ups, your shadow sides, all of those things, being kind to them and holding them, and then being able to kind of go, and also what else is there? So it has deep roots, and I guess in terms of why that's important to coaches is that coaches, you know, we're all about being able to enable our clients, work with our clients. And if we learn to be compassionate to ourselves, if we learn to be able to cast some light on those shadow sides, then I fully believe that we're more able to do that with our clients. There's more space, there's more room, there's more things that we are okay with, even if they feel unpleasant, or we want to kind of push them away.
You're making me think so many things.
That's why I stopped. I could go on.
I've got my grandma here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hello, Grandma.
My grandma brought up 4 children through the war, the Second World War. You know, and you can't imagine what those circumstances might have been like. And she taught me to make fruitcake. And every time she taught me to make fruitcake, she said, so you do this and you do this and you do the other. And there are many funny stories which I won't share here about me making fruitcake. But anyway, Grandma used to say, you put it in the tin and then you put a layer of brown paper around it, and then you tie it up with string. But you need half the string, so you have to split the string down the middle.
Oh.
So Grandma died, I kept on making the cake, I kept on tying it with half the string. And then one day I realised that that wasn't actually part of the recipe, and that was
Yeah.
what she had to do.
Yeah.
Because she didn't have string, and it was the war and everything else. But it's so interesting to see yourself repeating patterns, because that's the pattern you were taught, without recognising where it came from.
Absolutely. And that's such a beautiful story. And it's so evocative of our inheritance. And I have a sense of my grandmas on both sides, because both of my grandmas, so on my mother's side and my father's side, both of them had fathers who died when they were very young. And both of them had to leave school. The legislation had just been changed, and I think you could stay on at school till you were 14. They both had to leave school. My mum's mum to be able to go into service so that her big sister could look after the family. And my dad's mum had to leave school to look after her siblings. And that got passed back down to them, and that got passed down to my parents. And so, and that's partly why I started to look at my relationship with money, because I felt that no matter how, okay I was financially, I had this real fear of poverty. I had this real sense of like being somebody who was going to be poor and old and alone. It really reverberated through me. And so I was like, once I started becoming more aware of the body and what it holds, I was like, actually, I need to shine a light on this. I can't live my whole life. And actually, the process of shining a light on these things which aren't conscious is quite glorious. It's quite painful because there's things that we've pushed away, and we've spent a lifetime, well, I have spent a lifetime pushing those things away. That image, I've spent a lifetime being capable, doing things, going out and earning money and being resilient and everything. And the energy in doing that, that pushing away of that story and that image is now released. And I'm more able to have that energy in my life rather than feeling like, oh my God, that's how I'm going to end up. And then like being fearful and then doing things through fear.
Mm.
Yeah.
It shows.
Thank you. Yeah. 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 So and another story another thing I wanted to talk about was, I guess, kind of relating this to coaches. So I talked about, that sense of growing our capacity to be able to be kind to ourselves, be self-compassionate, and to be able to start to shine a gentle light on the shadow things we've pushed away. I guess also for coaches, there are a lot of coaches like me. I started off and I worked in companies as an internal coach, so I didn't get paid for my coaching, and that was glorious because I didn't have to think about money. And then I set up my own business, and I was aware that my relationship with money was a bit strange, but also I've realised very quickly when I got referred a client, and what I did was, we got to the bit around money, and she asked me how much I charged, and I sort of said a really small amount because I felt really embarrassed about charging for money, and her response was, "Oh, I thought it would be more." Oh, oh, and I could see that she thought that I was only worth the amount that I had said. And so she didn't work with me. She worked with somebody who charged about 6 times more than I had said. And I was like, oh, note to self, I need to do something about this. And so I'm a great fan of co-coaching, and I have a co-coach, Neil Hormans, who I trained with as Somatic coach. And he said, well, let's do a role play. And so we did a role play, and I coached him, and it was all great. And then I got to the bit about money, and I just couldn't talk. I just couldn't say it. I was just waffling on. I was really embarrassed. I was really unclear. And his feedback to me was, Caroline, you're not coaching anymore. You've stopped coaching. And I was like, oh, of course, money is also something that we coach on. And so I practiced, and I got more comfortable with, that sense of like, being able to talk about money and have that money conversation. And some of the questions I asked myself were, well, what's the figure that I need to be paid to show I'm taking this seriously? What's the figure that the client needs to pay to show that they're taking it seriously? Because, when people take up coaching, they're investing in themselves. And we need to honor that. When we actually don't charge or charge very little, we're not allowing that conversation around being able to invest. So, the question for me is, what's the number that enables it to happen in the best and most inspiring way? And so, from that, I quite enjoy that part of the conversation because it's coaching. And when there's a bit of like I'm like, I feel okay enough about my relationship with money to know if it's my sort of or the client. I don't know how I don't know how it's going to come across. But that sense of when we give too much, we often feel very burdened and resentful. And when we receive too much, we can feel too guilty. So, coaching is about that exchange.
Mm.
And so I do feel like it's important for us to honour that. And even when attacked, if you work in a coaching pool, which is what I did for quite a long time when I worked as a coach starting off, I didn't have to think about money. I actually think in retrospect, it would have been useful for me to have done that. Yeah.
Because really you were just carrying on as an internal coach on a salary.
I was, yes. And I could park all of the
How interesting.
ickiness and stickiness of money.
Because it's such a great way, isn't it, if you've got the right kind of work experience beforehand, being in a pool or on a platform is just a beautiful way of getting a nice flow of
absolutely
people to coach.
Yes, absolutely. And it is. And I would say that if you are thinking about, moving into a different, working for yourself or being able to charge for money or whatever, or even if you're just thinking about money in terms of your client's relationship with money, then it's worth maybe shining a little bit of light on your relationship with money.
I love the light shining metaphor.
Yeah. It's about being kind of gentle. And actually, I asked you before this started whether you would do an activity, and I'm just wondering about that. This feels like an opportune time
Yeah.
to try one out.
Yeah.
And for people that are listening, you could also do this as well, either when you're listening or afterwards. But the ask is to think about a repetition or a challenge that you have around money. Something that you could repeat.
I just say, listeners, she hasn't told me anything about this apart from saying, shall we do a thing? Yes, I know exactly what that is.
Right. Okay. So I want you to not just bring that to mind in terms of intellectually and thoughts, but also to kind of let yourself really get into the sense of what that is like. So what that does with your body. And I want you to imagine that your hand is holding that challenge. Okay. And so, that challenge, that repetition you've got around money, I don't need you to explain what it is or anything like that. It's kind of that it's your hand is holding it tight. Okay. And why do I
Tight.
very tight? And we're going to do two parts to this. And the first part, and there is no right answer. Okay, so whatever comes, and it's like being with whatever comes. Just noticing that, what I'd like you to do is with the other hand, see if you can open what that's holding and force it to come out and to force yourself to kind of deal with it. It's like, right, I'm going to deal with this money thing. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to change it.
My goodness, it's stuck.
Yeah, make yourself, just notice what happens. So that's stuck that I can see. It's like, yeah. And I could just see you really being with that.
I'm really pushing it. But the pressure coming back the other way is really hard.
Yeah. So, if you're ready to just let that one go.
Which one?
Okay. Yeah, both your hands. Just let that forcing. I'm gonna sort out my money issue. I'm gonna shift my relationship with money and that kind of energy. And we're gonna do a lessened part to this. So again, I want you to have this money thing is being held by your hand, okay, like it was before. But this time, the other hand is just gonna hold it. It's gonna go underneath and support it. And kind of go, thank you. You've been looking after me, money thing, my relationship with money. You've been doing stuff for me.
Thank you. You've been looking after me. You've been doing stuff. Actually, I think you've been doing stuff for me. But maybe you haven't.
Yeah, so maybe it's time, with my support, maybe it's time maybe to sort of just like see if there is something else that can happen here. Just notice what happens when you have that energy.
All the feeling in my body is in my upper arms, and I'm more relaxed in my hands. I feel like I'm holding it somewhere else now.
Oh, wow. And what's that like, that shift from those two things?
It hurts. But my holding the thing is looser.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So check it off if you want it. So that's really that sort of sense of, we quite often we're spicy with ourselves. And the relationship with money, because it has such roots, we're busy fighting us with ourselves, and it takes up energy. And with the sort of somatic approach, what we're doing is, it is that gentle light. It is that hand underneath that says, actually, kind of honor what's got me here. It's got me here. I might feel that I'm a bit, I do sometimes. I'm like, oh, honestly, Caroline, really? How often do I have to learn this lesson? But it's that honoring that you've got this far. You survived. You're here. And actually now in that honoring and that bringing in of what got you here, then maybe there are other choices.
And breathing.
That's always a good sign.
It's really interesting because the thing I was holding, I took to supervision on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels, yeah, so it feels like that was another step.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's like, because money is such a great receptacle to our unconscious projections. That's what Peter Koenig, who did a lot of work around money, says. But because it's not like, oh, right, we can do stuff and we're all sorted. But it's the more we are able to see this as part of what we're doing, the more we open up. And then honestly, the easier it gets to keep on opening up and opening up. But it's never like we get to a point where we're like, yeah, I got it. I'm sorted. I'm the queen of money. Thank goodness, really. Just that sounds quite boring.
It does, doesn't it? Quite unhuman.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can do that again.
Yeah.
Without you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that sense of, what if we bring a different energy to this? And you can do it with anything that you think, oh, actually, I'm being quite harsh with myself, and really, that's one of the reasons why I feel like coaching is such a force for good, because I went to a coach in my early 20s. And, I learned, she did a kind of guided meditation with me where I was full of fear, and she went in and I was like, oh, actually, there's life here, there's energy here. And, all of these things we can learn, and we can get that sense of what happens if I'm more kind to myself. And for me, I used to have this phrase, if I'd made a mistake, I would have this voice that would go, well, that was clever. And then I just let myself be softer towards that voice. And now that voice doesn't come in anymore. But it wasn't a banishing of that voice. It was oh, here I go again. Pulling myself off.
Yeah. What's really interesting, Caroline, about talking to you is that you have some great conventional coaching stuff in your bucket.
Yeah, absolutely need those. Definitely need those conventional.
And when we first met, that was pretty much what you had in your bucket.
Yeah.
Because that foundation is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then I noticed that you added the somatic stuff, and you've done sort of tweaks. But there's what I really like about the way you talk about your work is it's all about permission.
Yeah. And I think that's why I run the somatic coaching programs, because people come to me and they are, they've got a lot of that stuff in their coaching bucket. They are good coaches and they want to grow and do more. And what I love is that after the program, I always have like a one-to-one. And what they have done in terms of integrating the somatic coaching is it's unique to them. It's not like this version or that version. It's their own. They brought it in with their experience, their approach, with the places that they use their coaching, and they've created something that's absolutely unique. And I just love it. I just love the fact that people are really creating something that's kind of going out in the world and the world needs.
Yeah. And now you've added family systems to your...
Oh, yes, I have. Yes, so I just finished training with that. And please don't ask me about that, because it's like somatic coaching. When somebody first asked me about somatic coaching, I spent 15 minutes explaining. And then they said, oh, you're a diet coach. That's made a complete piece here of being able to explain that. And that's where I feel I am with family systems. That family systems constellations is really that sense of our inheritance, that we talked about before, our grandmothers and our great grandfathers, and that kind of resonance and entanglement that we have.
But you talked about it lightly through this whole conversation.
I have, haven't I?
Yeah, so but not in a way that is inaccessible or something that I don't understand or that our listeners won't understand. So when I talked about my grandma, you said, hello, Grandma.
I did. Yeah.
Which was a light humour, but it was also recognising that I come with a backstory, some of which I know about and some of which I'm discovering, actually.
Yes. And I think what's one of the things that I love about this is that you realise that everybody brings a backstory and you don't know what is in it, but often it's a lot more complex. And we make assumptions about other people. Other people have got it sorted. They come from a great family. Everything's, da, 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 da. And actually you realise the backstory for people is, much more complex than that and much more multi-layered. And but it's kind of wonderful when people start to see that and to be able to start to get to grips with how things are. Quite often we fight with. I certainly fought a lot with. There's this phrase, acceptance. I hate that phrase, acceptance. It's like to me, acceptance equals suck it up. But actually, there is something around being able to be with what is.
Yeah.
A different thing. It's not a sucking it up, but it's a sense of like, oh, okay, that is kind of how it is and how it's been, and it's painful, or it's all so many different emotions that I'm able to be with it.
Yeah. I've just had an insight as you're talking.
Go on then.
My great grandfather, one of my great grandfathers, because I don't know how many do you have? 8. One of my, you have 4 great grandfathers, don't you? One of my great grandfathers was very successful businessman, and when my parents moved about 6 years ago, we inherited the family history. It's been in my brother's house. He's done nothing with it. So after my dad died, I said, bring it round to me 1 box at a time and I'll go through it. And it's hoarding.
Oh,
I mean, it's seriously hoarding. It's hoarding paperwork. So I've got all of my granny's replies to her wedding in 1928. And being compassionate about that is a bit difficult because I'm trying to not leave my kids to have this. It's about 10 boxes, and in it is some really important stuff, but there's also stuff. It's really difficult to throw away something that was written in 1928. Can I tell you?
yes, I
You
bet.
can't really put it in the recycling because anyway, that's for me to deal with. But the really interesting thing is that her father, who was a very successful businessman, there are really fancy photographs of that family from probably 1880 through to 1925, I would say.
Right.
And his business collapsed. And after that, there's nothing.
Right.
So if you look at the photos from the early 1900s, there are almost none from any other line of the family.
Oh, right.
They're tiny little
Yes. Yeah.
with bendy edges. Whereas these are properly mounted, professional. There's hundreds of them. I found the granddaughter of one of my granny's sisters who lives in America by trawling the internet. And I made contact with her because I wanted her to tweet some of this. Sorry about my leg. And I sent her a letter. In the end, I found an address that might be her. I sent her a letter. I wrote her a letter in pen with my inside. She comes back to me. She said, "It's so lovely to meet someone else in the family. I've got a lot of family photographs. Would you like
And you
some?"
were like, no.
The point was, what's happening here? But I just wonder whether some of my relationship with money, and I'll deal with that somewhere else. I've wondered for a while whether it's to do with that breaking of something.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I'm sure it's had some kind of resonance kind of from there, that sense of being able to have money and then suddenly it's gone.
Yeah.
So it does all sorts of things. And, it gets passed down unconsciously, a bit like your gran, splitting the string.
Yeah.
It's like you just accept it. That's how things are.
Different grandma, different family line.
Yeah, it is so.
Sure.
Yeah. So you've got all of those different inheritances kind of coming and working out kind of with you. And, I guess now, at this point in time, we are in a time where, you and I are quite resourced. And so we are able to do more than just survive. And so, and that's down to the things that people earlier, provided for us, that we are where we are now. Yeah.
And as much as there's conflict between them, they all provide us with different things, didn't they?
They did. So it's, it is. So that, there is really that sense of it being quite tangled. Yeah.
As you're talking, I'm just wondering about my own family line and thinking actually some of my inner conflict. If I take my 8 grandparents, if I take my 8 great grandparents, it's probably a bit of their DNA having a bit of a conflict with a bit of theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
How interesting.
Well,
Well, Caroline,
I love your curiosity around it, and I think that again is such a wonderful attribute of coaches.
Yeah.
That curiosity around. Oh, look, there's that nutty thing that I do. Like, oh, what's that?
yeah.
What does that mean?
What a delight to talk to you.
Well, I think that was fascinating. Yeah, and also to you, it's been really good fun. I've not felt like I've been interviewed at all.
Good. That's
Felt
the
like a
point.
chat. Yeah.
So, your new program, how do people find out about it?
Yeah, so you can contact me on LinkedIn, and if you go onto my profile, then you can click the button to sign on to my newsletter.
Okay.
And that's the best way of getting information. But, do contact me as well, because I love having conversations. And I've got some, offers for people that are listening to your programme. So my Somatic Money programme that's starting in the autumn, I'm offering at 249 with coaching in. And the same with my introduction to somatic coaching. That's the same price again with coaching in as the code. And also I'm launching a certificate in somatic coaching as well. And I'm doing an offer to the first 6 people, that's 2,500. So if you listen to that now, this podcast now, you might be able to get that. And thereafter, for any of your coaching students, if they put in the code 3D coaching, it's 2,760. So normally 3,600. So kind of big reductions there because, you've been so generous to me. I've just got to repay the generosity. I really have. And what I should say with the certificate in somatic coaching is it's down to Claire kicking me up the backside and saying, you run this introduction. Well, when's it going to grow up? So I reflect. Yeah, you're right. So I love having that little gentle kick up the backside. So thank
Pleasure. Pleasure, fair exchange, right? You've done me on money this morning. I kick you up the backside.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still think you should call it simplifying semantics, but anyway, that's a working name. So, Caroline Quaife, thank you for coming to the Coaching In.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
And everyone, thank you for listening. If you love this episode, do pass it on to someone else. That would be just amazing. Enjoy your week, and we'll be back next week with another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we'd love you to share the podcast with a friend or leave a comment on social media. And if you'd like to become a regular at the Coaching In, you can subscribe on Podbean and all major podcast channels. We look forward to welcoming you next time. You've been listening to The Coaching In, 3D Coaching's virtual pub. For more information, check out 3dcoaching.com.